If you have seen Finding Dory, you may remember this cute bird in the beginning. This is the well-known sandpiper. Our project focuses on a very similar shorebird, the piping plover, specifically focusing on the southern Maine area of a little beach town called Scarborough.
My name is Dr. Amber Roth. I am Assistant Professor of Forest Wildlife Management with a dual appointment in the School of Forest Resources and the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Conservation Biology. Piping plovers, a species that is not particularly common, and it's protected under the Endangered Species Act. There are three population segments for piping plover. There's the Great Plains population, the Great Lakes population, and the Atlantic Coast population. And the Great Lakes population is listed as endangered, and the Great Plains and Atlantic populations are listed as federally threatened. There are multiple contributing factors, most likely, that have resulted in the population being small. One, they nest on sand beaches. Obviously, sand beaches are popular with humans, and we spend a lot of time there. Various forms of recreation. There's also a lot of development along coastlines. We have a lot of housing development, resorts, hotels, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of impacts directly on their nest habitat. So there's that direct disturbance that happens to their nests, as well as indirect problems such as some of this development and this disturbance can increase predators in their nesting habitat. We've obviously introduced things like cats, feral house cats, to the environment, which can have an impact. There's a lot of different ways that that's being communicated, and it's being communicated by different groups and partners that are trying to work on conservation of piping plovers. So you see agencies like the Fish and Wildlife Service, state agencies, nonprofit organizations like Maine Audubon, and various organizations that are concerned about the future of these birds, given that they're either endangered or threatened, depending on where you are. In Maine, they're a threatened species. There's a lot of programs and education efforts that these different groups are putting out, and you see that in the form of information on the web. There's web pages about programs that are being dedicated to recovering the species. You see printed materials that are given out at various programs when they're trying to educate people that are using beaches. You see signage a lot of times on the beaches that identify areas where the birds are nesting or might be nesting, and to be watchful and careful during the breeding season in those areas. Just people walking can step on nests or scare birds away, and then their nest is not protected, and then it's vulnerable to a gull coming and taking the eggs or some other predator. And ATVs and other motorized vehicles can really change the habitat, but also run over nests and be problematic. So the disturbance issue is varied and a lot of different impacts there. The global population in North America is about 2,000 individuals. Obviously, we're talking about beaches that are in the Northeast where they're breeding, so from the Maritimes down to North Carolina, and a lot of the beaches that they like are the beaches we like as well, and they're nesting in the spring, early summer, when we're starting to use beaches a lot for various recreational purposes. So when people are being restricted and not being able to use stretches of beach that maybe they had access to before.
In September of 2013, a dog in Scarborough, Maine attacked and killed a piping plover chick. This led to major controversy, and eventually, a ruling that unleashed dogs were no longer allowed on the beaches of Scarborough.
I resonate on both sides of the debate because I like going to the beach. I like walking up and down the beach, collecting shells, going in the ocean. So I enjoy using beaches too, but I also like birds, and so I like to think that there's win-win scenarios where we can continue to use beaches but also protect the birds at the same time. So I think it's just a matter of being creative and looking for solutions that are acceptable to people and explaining what's going on and that these are not permanent beach closures, they're just for certain periods of time. And so I really see both sides of the issue because I'm a beach user as well as an ornithologist. So I like to think that we can have our cake and eat it too, so to speak.
Many people have different views on this ruling, as their ideologies are different. Some dislike this ruling because it restricts their recreational activity. These views are very much anthropocentric. Anthropocentrism is an example of a nature-culture binary which helps to shape how we as humans relate to the world. Specifically, the anthropocentric ideology is built on the idea that humans are dominant and essential and possibly even more important than other creatures. We interviewed an anonymous Scarborough dog owner who resonates with this side of the debate. This interview took place at Higgins Beach in Scarborough.
So there's a group called Dog Owners of Scarborough, Greater Scarborough, and they have a website and they're on Facebook, and you can check them out too, because they fought really hard for the dogs to have more access.
Others believe it is necessary to try and protect the plovers, possibly having a conservationist, preservationist, or ethically driven ideology.
Yeah, I'm Amy. I grew up in Scarborough. We spent a lot of time on Higgins Beach from early ages all the way through high school. We used to come down this end of the beach too because it was the private end of the beach, and as we were older in our teen years, we'd come down here at night and have bonfires and party down here. I don't know if the kids are doing it anymore, but I hope they're not. This is now protected. And the majority of the people here seem to respect it. Respect the birds and know that this is their place and their space.
The newspapers, Facebook pages, and websites that we talked about in this video are all types of social media used in the form of symbolic action. These sources of information may also impact the ideologies and standpoints of individuals that are both involved in the act of preservation of the piping plover and those who want to protect their recreational rights. In conclusion, the Piping Plover Preservation Act includes many environmental and communication concepts that were mentioned throughout this course.